Driving through the night trying to keep my eyes open. The generator's busted and the AC's broken. I'm talking to the Lord, hope he helps us get there safe. And we made it to the show, now we're singing to the crowd. We're playing encore and they're screaming real loud. Try to get home early, but I know that ain't the case. Yeah, it's another hotel room, sleeping on the floor. I'm hurting in the morning from the night before. Pay my dues, I'm eating, love the road. I'm coming home, baby, leave the porch light on. Breakfast in the morning from 7 to 9, but we just can't seem to wake up in time. We grab a cup of coffee and we're off to hit the road. Now we're running on fumes, no time to kill. We got one more show and it's a shitty doorbell, breaking my back just to make a couple more. Yeah, it's another hotel room, sleeping on the floor. I'm hurting in the morning from the night before. Pay my dues, I'm eating, love the road. I'm coming home, baby, leave the porch light on. Yeah, it's another hotel room, sleeping on the floor. I'm hurting in the morning from the night before. Pay my dues, I'm eating, love the road. I'm coming home, baby, leave the porch light on. Yeah, it's another hotel room, sleeping on the floor. I'm hurting in the morning from the night before. Pay my dues, I'm eating, love the road. I'm coming home, baby, leave the porch light on.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to know why I'm here today? It's not because I want to give you a pep talk or because I want to make you feel good about yourselves. No, I'm here to tell you the truth.
Hey, get a sound check for you real quick. Make sure that we've got good audio. It seems like I always have the audio done, but one of these days I'm not going to ask and I'm just going to be running my mouth and everybody's going to be like, we can't hear you, Devil's Advocate. So I just thought I'd check, make sure that you can hear me. Anybody give me a thumbs up or something, or audio or something, or say, yes, I hear you. I would appreciate it. But otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. A thumbs up is I'm going to take that as, yes, you can hear me. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. So, small little intimate group to start out. Again, I just wanted to say hi. This is my bi-weekly Tuesday, Thursday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard time slot for people who are in different time zones, since we do have an international audience and there are people watching from all over the world. And so some people just can't make those late night shows on the West Coast, which I normally go. So this is that other time zone. For those who are unfamiliar with my station, let me tell you a few things real quick about my channel. This is the Devil's Advocates. It is a term that you should be familiar with, playing devil's advocate, which is not always a super popular position, which is to basically say, hey, you've got a hard fact-based decision that you've made, and I'm going to play devil's advocates with that position. I'm going to challenge your presumption. You think that there's an open and shut case here, let me play devil's advocate. So that's what I do. I believe in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. And so therefore, especially when mainstream media seems to have already tried to tell you who's guilty before they've ever stepped foot in a courtroom, I will step in often in those high profile cases and say, wait a minute, what if it didn't happen the way that they're telling you it happened? Let's actually give somebody for 2 seconds in this country the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. Because of that, I also am critical of mainstream media's tactics to shape public opinion before it ever goes to trial. I'm critical of law enforcement's tactics, which oftentimes become extremely narrow-sighted. Once they've decided who they're going to arrest, law enforcement often focuses on making sure everything that they get points to they got the right guy. They don't want the embarrassment of having the wrong guy, so they will make sure the evidence fits the case that they've already decided is the case. Prosecution likewise also tends to only look at proving the person who has been arrested is the person who was the right person all along, not looking into those alternate suspects and things like that. And so therefore, somebody, oftentimes, of course, the defense team's job is to try to find alternative suspects, other people who may have done the crime, and provide some kind of form of reasonable doubt for a jury. Is it true my guy, my girl did this crime, or is it possible somebody else did that, and interject reasonable doubt? Oftentimes, we don't get that thing. We get plea deals at the last second, like in the case of Brian Koberger in Idaho, who pled at the last minute after over 2.5 years of keeping everybody in suspense, waiting for the trial to prove that he may have not been involved in those crimes, only to at the last second say, you know what, screw it, I did it. Again, in America, however, we have found that people do plead guilty for things that they didn't do. It may or may not be the case in Brian Koberger's case. I'm not going to completely defend all day long, every day, that he's innocent if the man has confessed, or I should say, better words, has pled guilty. There is a slight difference, nuance between confessing to a crime and pleading guilty. Pleading guilty is a legal position. So pleading guilty is has legal ramifications. It's maybe a little different than a confession. We can talk about that if you'd like. Today's show is going to be a little bit open questions and answers, but I do want to cover some of the highlights of the week, some things that have happened in the last 24 hours or so that you're aware of that. I'm going to try to watch my channel's comments as well. Again, like, subscribe if you're not doing so already, because if you already kind of think that this might be a good channel for you, go ahead and take the moment to hit like, subscribe, and notifications all, so you get notified when I go live. I do think that there's maybe a possible thing that I'm doing wrong on my part, because I schedule lives and I stream them through a program called StreamYard, and sometimes after I broadcast, it still says that broadcast is upcoming. It might be the answer to why some of you say, well, I signed up for this live and I never saw a notification that you were going live. Maybe there's something I'm doing wrong, but I haven't been able to confirm that. I'm working on that on the backside to try to find out why, after I have broadcast, it sometimes says the broadcast is still upcoming and the date's already past due. So maybe it's something I'm doing on my side. So let me talk a little bit about what's happened in the last 24 hours or so. I've been on Bertie Bombshell's show. You may be familiar with Bertie Bombshells. I go live with him on Mondays on a regular basis, at least for the time being. Everything seems great. We're going to keep doing it until people grow tired of listening to me or him or us together, whatever the case may be. So we went live together yesterday on his show. And his show is a little bit more, you know, fly by the seat of your pants. I bet things a lot, and he kind of like, first time he hears something, let's dig into it right now and dive down the rabbit hole. So on that show, I wanted to comment about something that happened that made me super uneasy. You may have watched it and saw how uneasy I got because of the style differences between Bertie Bombshells and I. And again, this is no beef with Bertie Bombshells. I love his show. You guys love his show. People love his show more than they love my show. So I might be doing something wrong. But having said that, I told him about a user who had given me a video, a YouTuber by the name of George Webb. And George Webb had some thoughts about Travis Decker, who happens to be an individual who, as far as we know, is still on the run after murdering his 3 young daughters in and around Wenatchee, Leavenworth area in Washington State. He's been on the run and they haven't found him. That happened about a month ago. They're still looking for Travis Decker. I might actually go up to Wenatchee because it's very close to me. I might go up to the campground where he was last seen and take some videos and actually do some investigative research on that story. However, George Webb, I'm getting back to the whole George Webb thing. George Webb is a YouTuber who claims that Travis Decker, the man who's on the run and killed his 3 daughters recently, was actually the same man, he was alleging the same man who killed everyone in Idaho in that college house in 2022. He referred to Travis Decker as the cleaner, and that Bryan Kohberger was doing some kind of investigation for the feds or helping them do some kind of research paper for the feds, and that it went horribly wrong. Somebody made a mistake, and the cleaner, some professional killer, needed to go in and kill everyone in the house. Now, there was major problems I had with George Webb's position, and here's what's interesting about George Webb. So I'm a little channel. I just broke 5,000 subscribers yesterday. By the way, congratulations, we reached 5,000 subscribers. Woohoo! I'm actually pretty excited about that. But it's small, tiny channel. Little tiny internet PP. The point being is that I did get 5,000. But this guy has 99,000 followers, nearly 100,000. He's about to close in on that coveted play button that YouTube hands out for subscribers who reach 100,000 users. So this guy's no slouch. George Webb is beating the pants off me, right? Beating the pants off me in his delivery. And yet, the reason why I couldn't go down the rabbit hole with Birdie and why I was so nervous is because when I listened to George Webb talk about the cleaner Travis Decker, my first thought was there is absolutely nothing in my mind that connects Travis Decker's killing of his 3 children and going on the run and his PTSD issues to anything that happened in Moscow, Idaho. To me, it seems like there's absolutely nothing that sets off alarm bells in my head that Travis Decker was involved in the killings in Idaho 2.5 years ago. And unfortunately, when George Webb, and I guess George Webb has a reputation for doing good investigative journalism, so I'm not trying to smack down George Webb's investigative journalism. All of us make mistakes from time to time and say things that aren't accurate. I say them too from time to time and make mistakes, and people are like, devil's advocates, that's not how it happened, you got it wrong. So even I have to correct that from time to time. Like, for example, I think I might mention that a little bit later in this thing about a mistake I just recently made. However, what George Webb said that really bothered me about this whole theory was that Bryan Kohberger was filming people. There's been no evidence of that whatsoever of that. So I would have to see that. Now, maybe he covered that somewhere. And if so, kudos, I need to see that. But he also said that the cleaner had to go in and kill every single person in the house. That's what they do. You know, in the Idaho 4 case, not every person was killed in that house. There were 2 survivors, Dylan Mortensen, Bethany Funk, were left alive. So George Webb saying that's why he had to go in and kill everyone in the house. He's got that fact wrong. He also stated at one point that that's the reason he killed all 4 of those girls. 4 girls were not murdered in that scene. 3 girls and a man were murdered in that scene. So again, he got that fact wrong. So I have to question myself, and this is what I told Birdie, I'm not going to go too far down the rabbit hole on a guy who already has some of the basics of the story wrong. The cleaner did not kill everyone in the house if that was a cleaner that did the job. That's, first of all, that was his interpretation. A cleaner went in and cleared out the house and killed all witnesses. That person did not kill all witnesses, unless we've been lied to about the official story and Dylan and Bethany weren't actually in the house and that's all a cover story and that never really happened. But if we do believe that Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk were in the house, then the cleaner that George Webb is talking about did not kill everyone in the house and kill all witnesses as his job supposedly was, nor were there 4 women killed. There was 3 women and a guy killed. So again, I just want to point out the reason why I didn't go down that thing. And Birdie, he, to bless his heart, because Birdie is awesome, Birdie was like, let's go down this rabbit hole a little bit further. What if this was true? And what if that is true? And I'm like, yes, but you have to understand the reason why I don't run with these stories except for when it's on Birdie's show, because Birdie's a fly by the seat kind of guy, and I dig that about him. That's why I go on his show once a week to kind of let loose. But it was still super awkward for me to go down the rabbit hole of the George Webb saying that Travis Decker was the cleaner in Idaho. I don't see any reason to believe that. Now, if you're listening to this show and you are a George Webb fan and you know that George Webb has covered proof that Brian Kohberger was videotaping men who were stalking women in Idaho as part of a government a project, then please let me know. I will be all over that on well, I was going to quote Major Payne, but lately I screwed it up, so I'm not going to do the white on rice and a cup of milk and a Coke cup of plate, whatever the fuck. See, I just fucked it up again. I used to say that flawlessly. White on rice on a paper plate, a cold cup of milk in a snowstorm. Fuck, I used to say that without flaw. Now I can't say it. I guess my mind is degenerating. Holy shit, it's a rough day. Anyways, let me take a look at a couple questions and answers, and I'm going to keep going through some bullet points. So I just talked about the live. I'm going to talk about a few videos I made and correct one of those. I told you that sometimes I make mistakes as well, and I don't want to call it a mistake. I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. But let me make sure that it's nothing in here. There's no proof Brian ever went to the Mad Greek. Wonders deep, and there's no proof Brian ever went to Mad Greek or saw Maddie or Kaylee. Right, that's the narrative that I'm getting absolutely annoyed with. This is this constant thing that Brian Kohberger saw Maddie at Mad Greek and became obsessed with her. None of that has any support, but we keep saying it over and over again in the media, and so therefore it's sticking as what is somehow known to have happened. By the way, somebody else adds the theory that was thought-provoking in terms of there being a cleaner in criminal enterprises, regardless of who the specific details. Understood. I agree with you. The concept of somebody who goes in and basically covers up for a mistake is a solid concept that I'm willing to explore. But again, am I going to explore that with somebody who's getting the facts wrong about the basics of that situation? That's where I have a real hesitancy to do so. If I find more meat on it, I'll jump in with both feet. Trust me. So let's talk about some recent videos I made and a mistake that people are saying I made so I can correct the error. So I made two back-to-back videos that tie in with each other that got published, I believe, yesterday morning. One was my top 5 reasons why Brian Kohberger changed his plea to guilty, and I ranked them in order from number 5 to number 1, my most likely scenario and why Brian Kohberger might have pled guilty at the last minute after 2.5 years. In addition to that, I made a second video, top 5 reasons why the prosecution offered a plea deal in the first place. And that's the one that people have said I made a mistake on. So many people have commented, for example, that it was Ann Taylor who asked for the plea deal, not Bill Thompson. So my statement that why Bill Thompson offered the plea deal was incorrect. Let me clarify why it's not incorrect, in my opinion. But I want to clarify for you so that you can understand. Maybe I should have, oh, by the way, one other correction. I actually had a thumbnail in the title. Somebody did the grammar Nazi thing on me, and that's totally fine. I said top 5 reasons Kohberger or Brian plead guilty instead of saying pled guilty. It was a typo. Should have been pled guilty, past tense. I put plead. Someone told me, hey, by the way, the past tense of plead is pled or pleaded. You got it wrong. It was a typo. I make mistakes, like I said. But the point being is that Bill Thompson offering the plea deal, let me reiterate and explain how this works in America. You cannot have a plea deal on the table if both sides have not agreed to it. It's not an issue if Ann Taylor asks for it and somehow Bill Thompson has to acquiesce to her response. No. Usually what happens is both attorneys are meeting with each other on a regular basis. Bill Thompson and Ann Taylor are sitting down every day. What do you got? What do you got? By the way, my client might be willing to take a plea. Well, we might be interested in offering a plea. It's a mutual thing. Who actually comes forward and says, we're gonna formally say, yes, we want to take that deal? The deal has already been made on the back end. Both sides have already agreed that they're going to do that. So it's splitting hairs when you say, well, Bill Thompson didn't offer the plea deal. Ann Taylor asked for it. Bill Thompson could have told her to pack sand. If Bill Thompson agreed, and he did, to a plea deal, changing the plea to guilty, that means it was essentially offered by the prosecution. In other words, they offered that option. We will let you off the hook. We will not continue to prosecute your client to death and execute him if you want to plead guilty. That's an offer by the prosecution. Whether or not the defense came first and said, hey, our guy would like to plea, it is still an offer made by the prosecution. Yes, we will offer you that option should you want to take it. So I stand by my convictions that the video essentially is correct. Bill Thompson offered the plea deal to the defense. He didn't have to offer them that olive branch. He could have told him to pack sand, we're going to execute your client because he's guilty, and we don't have to offer you a plea deal. So it was offered, whether or not Ann Taylor actually asked for it or not. So I hope you understand why I'm splitting hairs. It's an education moment mostly. It's not a getting irritated that somebody called me out. I want to educate people. A plea deal is done by both parties. You can't have one without the other. So if the plea deal is made, both sides have offered it. The client has offered, I'm willing to take a plea. The prosecution has offered, I'm willing to give you a plea. That is an offer on both sides that are accepted, and then it goes forward. All right. There was one other video that I made, by the way, James Patterson's new book on the Idaho called The Idaho 4, written by James Patterson and Vicki Ward. That book came out yesterday. I did my first read of the author's note and prologue, chapter 1, 2, and 3. There were 3 small chapters that were part of the prologue. I did my first video on the series. It is going to be a series as I read through the entire book of James Patterson and Vicki Ward, giving my opinions about how their book is different than what we've been told in mainstream media or any new details they gave. And yes, there were indeed new details that came out in the book. So I know that several people have told me you've already read the book all the way front to cover. Some people apparently had copies of this book before it got publicly released. I don't know how that happened exactly, but I'm not doubting that it did. But several people told me they had read the book and knew what the book was about before I even got the advanced copy I paid for. So I guess it's been out there for a while, but my version that I paid for on pre-release just got released yesterday, and I only got a chapter through, or the prologue through. Some people have read it entirely. And some people who have read it entirely have told you there's nothing new here. I bet you dollars to donuts when I read it, I will find something new, because that's what I do. I see things differently than other people. And I think that's why some of you like watching my channel, as I see things that other people don't see, and I bring up questions that other people don't bring up. So we'll see at the end of the day as I work through the book. But already, by the way, I will say, some people have said there's nothing to see in this book, and I already have things to talk about. I already had like, really, this is what happened, because this is what I remember hearing, and that just happened in the prologue. So we're just getting started on that book. I think it'll be good. In addition, by the way, you might still get a big benefit out of reading my other book series that I did, the entire book of Howard Bloom's When the Night Comes Falling. Whether you believe that Howard Bloom is a good author or not, or a good researcher, you might want to hear my opinions, especially on the Corner Club video. So anyways, that series, by the way, is going to be, it's a playlist. There's a playlist for the Idaho 4, TIF, the Idaho 4, which is with a F. TIF 001, 002, 003. Every episode in my book series will be labeled TIF and then the next number in sequence, so that you can follow along, and with the playlist if you want to separate those from the rest of my content. Holly, thanks for joining my live, coming in late to the show. Oh, I don't know if you came in late. Maybe you've been here the whole time and I just missed it, but thank you so much. The book comes off as a cheap romance novel. Well, at the very beginning of the book, James Patterson said this book's going to read like fiction, even though Vicki Ward, by the way, Vicki Ward is a renowned journalist, investigative journalist. She's got a lot of credentials. She is a top journalist. Working with James Patterson, the novelist, to come up with a better written story that is all based on facts. That's what the first thing that they said in the book. This is going to read like a fiction novel, but it is all facts. Facts themselves also may not always be facts. That's the tricky part. All right. So we've talked about my show with Birdie and the George Webb thing that made me uncomfortable. Some of you watched me squirm a little bit. It was still enjoyable. I liked it. I think getting outside my comfort zone from time to time is a good thing. One thing I did pick up on, not to ruin it for anyone. Let's see there. One thing I did pick up on, not to ruin it for anyone, but James Patterson says the sheath was found before Fry got there. I get that it's fiction, but some big info if off. Yeah, I remember clearly reading that it was actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I remember clearly Corporal Payne being the one that found the knife sheath, not Fry. So that's a good question. These are the things, though, that we want to dive into. And I'm glad that you're paying attention to that level of detail, because I think the order that things were found and the timing of which they are found will become important. Let's talk about the upcoming gag order in the Idaho 4. We will, by the way, have a little bit of Rex Heuermann and a little bit of Luigi Mangione stuff at the bottom. I'm kind of starting out, by the way. I'm starting out with a whole bunch of Brian Koberger stuff. I'm going to try to watch the comments and keep that going. But I want to talk now a little bit about some more about Idaho 4, the gag order lifting on the 17th. So I believe on the 17th of July, there is a Zoom meeting being held in Ada County under Judge Hippler, which is going to be a lifting of the non-dissemination order. So I want to talk a little bit about what that is, what that means, and what I expect. In addition, there is a sentencing hearing for Brian Kohberger on July 23rd in Ada County. That's where officially, now that the plea deal has been agreed by both sides, Brian Kohberger will be brought back into court to say, okay, now that I've reviewed your plea and your guilty plea and I've had time to think about it, here is your punishment. And the judge will then read the punishment. It also is likely at that point that family members will be able to give their victim impact statements. They'll be able to express to the judge why the judge should be lenient or not lenient. You know, nobody's going to ask for leniency whatsoever. You know that the judge is going to give him maximum sentence on every part of that thing across the board. That's not really a question in my mind. That would be a stunner, shocker if Brian Kohberger does not get the absolute maximum on every single count of that thing. And we know that's going that way before we get there. Let's talk about the non-dissemination order again. What does that mean exactly? Well, a non-dissemination order doesn't necessarily mean what you hope it means. It does not mean necessarily that automatically all of those sealed documents that have been sealed for 2.5 years are getting unsealed. That is not what that likely means at all. The lifting of a non-dissemination order, primarily from what I understand, is allowing people to talk for the first time. So attorneys will be able to talk. Ann Taylor could talk if she wants to. Bill Thompson can talk if he wants to. Attorneys representing the families like Steve Gonzalez's attorney or Cornoto's attorney, if they have a personal attorney, might be then allowed to give statements on behalf of the family, things that they were not saying because they were told to keep their mouths shut about the details. They will be able to open their mouths and run their mouths at length, all sides, when the non-dissemination order is lifted. Now, again, it doesn't necessarily have to do with unsealing court documents. It just allows people to talk. Law enforcement will then also be allowed to talk. So if Chief Fry, for example, who I think isn't he retired now? If he wants to come out and talk about what he did during those days and tell you all the details about what he did, he's allowed to talk about that. Any officer involved in the thing will be allowed to go on media, CNN, Fox, YouTube channel, whatever the hell you want to do, and they will be allowed to talk about it. That is what the non-dissemination order is. It's going to allow people to talk. It's not necessarily about the documents themselves. Some documents that were redacted, meaning that the document was released, but portions of it were blacked out because you're not allowed to see a name. That kind of stuff might or might not come unredacted during the lifting of the non-dissemination order. But actual sealed documents that are sealed by a judge as sealed have a more formal process from what I understand. And this is what I try to do, is educate people on how the legal process works. So more than likely, let me clarify, more than likely, the removal of the non-dissemination order on the 17th means that people are going to start running their mouths. People are going to talk a lot. People are going to go on every television show and talk for the first time about things that you've never heard. That will be great. That'll be big. It'll be new information, but it'll just be talking. There won't be any facts behind it other than the fact that they talked about it. We'll have to trust their word. If you want to see the legal documents, it's very likely those documents will remain sealed, especially if they were sealed by a judge like Judge or Hippler. And then the process is this: somebody will need to file a request to unseal the document. That request will be formally submitted in a court of law. The judge, whoever's presiding over that part of it, will review the request to unseal the document and make a ruling whether to unseal the document or not. So that may not happen. A judge may decide for some reason or another, and there's a few cases in where that would happen, to not unseal a sealed document. So every single document that is sealed is not automatically unsealed with the removal of the non-dissemination order. So I hope you understand that, and I hope I got it right. This is an education channel, and I try to understand how it works, and I pay attention to the legal nuances. So let me clarify once again. What happens on the 17th? A non-dissemination order gets lifted, we think. If that allows people that in the family who have been keeping their mouths shut, not everybody in the families have been keeping their mouths shut, but some families haven't even been heard of until this recent documentary came out. They'll be allowed to talk. Attorneys will be allowed to talk. Police officers will be allowed to talk. Prosecutors will be allowed to talk. The coroner, Kathy Mabbitt, may be allowed to talk. Everyone will be allowed to talk about the case. with the lifting of a non-dissemination order. It is not the same thing. Talking is not the same thing as seeing the legal documents that have been sealed. We also likely will not see, with the lifting of the non-dissemination order, the grand jury testimony or findings of the grand jury. That may be sealed forever, i.e. anything that was said by Bethany Funk or Dylan Mortensen in front of a grand jury may forever be sealed. Any information that they decide is confidential or challenging, such as the details of the victim's wounds, may forever be sealed. It may never be lifted. They may determine that it's not in the public interest to know exactly how many times somebody was stabbed or where they were stabbed or how they were stabbed. They may decide for you, a judge may decide for you, that's something that doesn't need to be known and forever will keep sealed the details of the stuff. Now, that doesn't mean, let's pay attention for education purposes. That doesn't mean Kathy Mabbitt, the coroner, can't come in and talk all day long about what she saw. She would say, yeah, those victims were stabbed 37 times. One of them was eviscerated. She could talk and run her mouth all day long if she wants to with the lifting of the non-dissemination order. But if you want to see what actually made it into the coroner's report, which might be sealed, somebody might have to request that the judge unseal the coroner's report, and that judge may reject the request to unseal the document, which leaves you with, you have to trust Kathy Mabbitt to tell you the truth, because you may never be allowed to see the legal documents. I hope you're following me so far, because if you're a true crime sleuther and you want to get to the bottom of this, there's going to be a lot of, in my opinion, of motor mouths talking about the case, but are they facts? Or is it going to be hidden behind the fact that the facts may forever be sealed, and therefore anybody can say whatever they want to because you can't fact check them, because the facts may forever be sealed, especially if there's any national security issues. Why the hell would there be a national security issue over 4 college students murdered in a small town of Moscow, Idaho? But if they determine that something in relation to that house is of national security, you can bet your ass that will never be released. It'll never be unsealed. It's national security. It's top secret at this point. It would be protected as a national secret. So if there's national security issues involved in this case, you'll never hear about that. So I hope that I set that straight. Now the question becomes, I plan on watching the non-dissemination order Zoom meeting that's going to be broadcast on the internet. I plan on watching that myself, and I will do my next scheduled live after that. I will talk about it. So I can't remember what day of the week that happens on. If I look, what is it? Today is the 15th. So Thursday night's show, I'm going live with actually with Pete Altieri from Murder Middle Mayhem, but I have a Thursday noon show, same time as this. So Thursday, same time as this. If the hearing is done on the Zoom court meeting, and I think it might be, I'll be able to talk about that. Whew, I talk a lot. All right, let me take a moment. I still got a couple more pieces of news. I want to talk about the sentencing hearing and about whether or not I'm going or not, things like that. But let me look through the notes and make sure that we've got comments being kept here. Somebody says to join the channel on iPhone, where's the join button? I don't know. I've never seen this show on an iPhone. Crap. Does anybody know? If anybody knows and she wants, she or he, Kim, not your cup of tea, probably a female. Anyways, if you can help Kim out with signing up on an iPhone, I'd appreciate it, because obviously I want another subscriber. Pushing towards 10,000. My next mental challenge is to try to get to 10,000 for some reason. I don't know why, other than several channels that I watch are right around 10,000, 13,000 followers. If I could get there, I'd consider myself finally up with some of the bigger players in this space, because I feel like the little small kid on the block. She's got no following. So if I can get up into the 10K, I feel like maybe I'm starting to get a little bit of like, hey, look at me, I could be a big boy. Of course, the 100,000 mark is where you really do it, because I want to put the fucking play button on the back of the wall, but that may be a pipe dream. Anyways, the point being is that help people subscribe if you can. That would be appreciated. I think we should do I thought about this too, Kimberly. I think we should do a group watch on Discord for the hearing. I thought about that too. And I don't know how to feel about it. Like, I know that Lana from Truth and Transparency, for example, is doing a live during that whole thing and is going to talk while it's happening. I don't want to talk over important things that the judge may be seeing. So unless I can pause the stream, talk, and then resume the stream, which I think I could do if we're watching on the internet, but I don't know how you guys will feel, because then you'll be getting behind listening to my motor mouth talk about things. So I'm still trying to debate whether or not to do those kind of court things live, because I don't want to talk over somebody and miss something important, because I talk a lot. And if I talk, I'll miss something. So unless I can pause the show and talk, I don't know if I'll do that. Oh, is this about me, Brandy? I like this guy, but he's hard to listen to. Is it because I talk so fucking fast? I talk really, really fast. So if that's about me, I apologize. That's me. I don't know. People say that I'm on crack cocaine. I'm not. I'm not taking anything. This is just natural me. I talk super, super fast. So anyways, let's talk about I may or may not go to the sentencing hearing. That is on the 23rd, and I believe it's in the morning, and I believe it's going to happen much like I did the first time. I was there, by the way. I was there at Brian Kohberger's change of plea. And I was in the courtroom, just a couple rows behind Bill Thompson. So I think I'm going to try to be there as well for the sentencing. Some people have said, well, why would you want to be there for the sentencing? Nothing's going to happen at the sentencing. Technically, nothing happened at the plea deal either, although it did. I had lots of things that I caught, and I really, really enjoyed understanding that process and telling you about the federal marshals that were in the courtroom and how Fox News and AP News and Inside Edition, how they interacted with me in line outside of the courthouse. That's stuff that you can't get by watching TV. So yeah, I'll probably do it again. And I'll probably tweet. In some way. I don't know. Do I need to create an X account? Do I need to create a Twitter account, or should I just do it on Discord? Because I'm thinking about doing like I did last time. I was standing in line and I would tweet little short things about what I'm seeing while I'm standing in line. I might do that again. So maybe I'll have to have a Twitter feed going. But again, we're so small. Will anybody watch it? Will it be worth the time? I don't know. Gosh darn it, I ramble. All right. Let's talk briefly about Rex Heuermann and Luigi Mangione, and then we'll end with questions and answers wide open for everybody. Rex Heuermann, the case of Long Island serial killer known as LISK or Gilgo Beach Killer. I'm covering that case. I'm going and getting boned up on it. We've been reading a book, we as in my channel, I have been reading a book called Lost Girls by Robert Kolker. And a lot of that book is super, super hard to digest. A lot of it is really kind of boring details that don't have anything to do with the true crime element. It's more about the families, and the families, as I say, cousins, uncles, brothers, sister who worked at McDonald's 20 years ago. And I don't find that relevant to the story, but it is something that the author wanted to basically humanize the victims and let you know more about the victims. And for that, I appreciate that. I think that understanding the victims is important. However, it's not terribly interesting for a true crime channel to talk about somebody's brother's cousin's sister's uncle's brother, second removed, who stole candy when they were 5, and how that might somehow led to the victim's choice to get into whatever. Like it was super hard for me to find something to comment on. So I'm gonna press through the book, but I skipped about 40% of the book already because it was just a lot of stuff that I didn't feel related to the case much at all. And again, I understand the reason why the author does it. He wants to humanize the victims, and I get that, but that's not quite my show. So I'm focusing on the parts where they talk about interactions with law enforcement, interactions with Rex Heuermann in the past, his possible involvement with law enforcement. Did Rex Heuermann know police officers? Did he make snuff films? That's the kind of shit from that book that I'm all over, like white on rice and a cold cup of milk and paper plate in a snowstorm. I got close to the Major Payne quote. Fuck, it's coming back. All right. So that's a video that I'm going to be putting out here in the next day or two, another chapter of Lost Girls that's coming out. And then thank you for following and subscribing, people who are getting subscribed. I see that there's people who are now becoming new members. So like that's super amazing. Thank you so much for subscribing. Let's talk about Luigi Mangione briefly. I did a short video, 13 minutes. Luigi Mangione is how this channel started. I started pretty much a day or two after Brian Thompson was shot and killed in downtown Manhattan on a busy street of New York outside of an investor conference. And when I saw that, my buddy and I got into a dispute. Was that a professional hit right there in the open and somebody assassinated Brian Thompson? Or was somebody just pissed off that their grandmother didn't get health care and shot the CEO of the healthcare company that killed his grandmother or his mother? And we debated that enough that it was like, you know what, you should have a YouTube channel because these theories are super interesting. And that's how we dove down. And then the case got super cold. After an illegal arrest, in my opinion, in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and being extradited to New York, and after Luigi Mangione was basically charged with 3 different jurisdictions, criminal charges in Pennsylvania for providing false identification to a police officer and possessing a firearm, then extradited to New York for murder of Brian Thompson, where he is being charged in both the state of New York and the federal government in New York and the Southern District of New York, 3 different three? Three different jurisdictions are trying Luigi Mangione in New York, all of them similar charges for the same crime. And I'm on that story like you wouldn't believe, but so far. It's been nearly 2 months, I believe, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania refuses to weigh in on whether or not the arrest was even legal in Pennsylvania. By the way, heads up, it was an illegal arrest. I believe it. Thomas Dickey, his attorney in Pennsylvania, pointed out exactly the same reasons I did why it was an illegal arrest. Karen Agnifilo, his attorney both in the state and the federal government cases in New York, wrote a huge document to the court saying, you're using documents that were obtained in an illegal arrest. And yes, we understand Pennsylvania decided that if they just don't rule on it and if a judge never says whether it was legal or not, we'll just keep using the documents which are illegal and should never come into a court of law. The things that they found on Luigi Mangione in Pennsylvania, regardless of how you feel about Luigi Mangione, whether he did it or not, the things that they found on him, such as a so-called confession letter and a bullshit manifesto, it never was a manifesto. All the attorneys have pointed out why it wasn't a manifesto. I've educated people on why it's not a manifesto. I did so again today, because where I'm going with that is I just did a long form video, 13-minute video this morning about a new documentary that I saw. It's not super new. It's been out for a few weeks, I think, a couple weeks. From Real Stories, a YouTube channel with 6.5 million users or viewers, subscribers. They did a special on Luigi Mangione with the title, what was the title? Luigi Mangione's Murder of United Healthcare CEO, Act of Justice or Terror. Again, how often media, even YouTubers, forget the basics of presumption of innocence. Luigi Mangione has not been proven in a court of law to be the shooter of Brian Thompson. So to say Luigi Mangione, the murderer of Brian Thompson, is a prejudicial statement in the first place. That's why I try to say Luigi Mangione is allegedly the shooter of Brian Thompson. And the evidence that is pointing to his guilt was illegally obtained. And so I did a short video today on the latest documentary, which pointed out, and this was my key point for 13 to 16 minutes on that video, that America is starting to shift where it gets its news. America is getting distrustful of mainstream media and is moving towards things like YouTube for the source of news or Facebook for the source of news instead of mainstream media. Mainstream media is getting freaked out that they are losing viewers to YouTubers. Their response is to shame YouTubers, basically telling YouTubers to stay out of their business. We're the news. You are not the news. You're a piece of shit profiting on people's death. Stay out of our business. Of course, their business is profiting off of people's death as well, but it's okay because they're supported by corporate sponsors like pharmaceutical companies. Like every other commercial that you see on CNN or Fox News, every third commercial or better will be a pharmaceutical company. Ask your doctor about Butlicka, whatever the case that may be. They're going to tell you to buy some new, ask your doctor if you can go on some new drug. Fuck, I don't even know what it's supposed to be for, but I need to ask my doctor about, hey, can I go on that drug? I heard a really cool drug. People are super excited and they're happy and they're smiling on the video. Can I have that drug? I don't know what it's for. Maybe, can you diagnose me with something so I can get on that drug? That's the way they're going in America. Pharmaceutical companies own your stations. They own your media. So, by the way, for those of you who want to say, I'll never watch a YouTube channel guy that makes his money profiting off of death and news stories. Well, I hope you don't watch Fox News and CNN as well, because they're doing the same thing, apparently, according to your logic. But worse so. Worse so. Do you trust CNN and Fox News and NBC News and CNBC and whatever the fuck station you listen to? Do you trust them to tell you the truth about what's happening in America and the healthcare crisis when Luigi Mangione allegedly shoots Brian Thompson, when the people who they're talking about are the same people paying their bills? The pharmaceutical companies paying their bills. Every other commercial is a pharmaceutical company. Do you think they're going to tell you the truth about Luigi Mangione? Do you think they're going to tell you the truth about how Americans feel about the healthcare system in America? Do you think they're going to tell you the truth? Or are they going to slant it to say, that guy's a piece of shit who murdered an innocent man and father of two, and he needs to rot in hell because Brian Thompson was just doing his job? He was just doing his job, making money for his shareholders. There's nothing wrong with that. And by the way, as full disclosure, our next commercial break is paid for by a pharmaceutical company who's in bed with Brian Thompson. The point being is that you're not going to get straight answers from people who are paid to give you a slant that direction either. Woo-wee! That was a little bit rant. By the way, if you're new to my channel, I guess I'm kind of known for going on rants, a lot like that one. All right, let's get to questions and answers in the group. and see if there's anything you guys want to fire at me. Any story that I follow, I'm open for questions. Luigi Mangione, Brian Thompson, Idaho, 4 questions. Rex Heuermann, the LISK, Long Island serial killer / Gilgo Beach murderer. Any questions, comments, or concerns? We got about 15 minutes devoted to just open Q&A. I'm going to see if it's like I'm waiting for crickets. We got 100 people in the room and no questions. Fire something at me. This is your chance. Fire it at me. Call me a name if you need, whatever you need to do. Give me something. Give me something good. All right, there you go. Kim became a new member. Thank you so much for becoming a member. I much appreciate. You're the one that was asking how do you subscribe on YouTube. So you figured it out. Not only did you subscribe, it looks like you became a member. I'm guessing that means a paid member. So thank you so much for your paid membership. By the way, for those who are interested in that kind of thing, I do have a membership. The entry level is $2.99 a month. You can't buy even a cup of coffee today for $2.99, and you can get behind the scenes videos that are addressed only to my members. You can get pre-look aheads. Well, the next tier up is pre-look aheads, but the point being is much 90% of my behind the scenes content comes from the $2.99 level of my members only area. So what else do you have? Much love from Kim. Woohoo! Woo-hoo! Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, you found the join button on the desktop. Perfect. That is some effort. You put some effort into joining this channel. Thank you so much. Any questions, comments, concerns about that? By the way, on last night's show, get this. On last night's show, Birdie Bombshell had a person that he knows create him an intro, a music intro song all about the Hive, because he's got the Hive marketing, and he's the Birdie Bombshell show and the Hive Mind. And somebody made him a music intro that talks all about the things that his channel does. He jokingly said, I thought he was joking, he said, I'm going to have my buddy make you an intro. He did that. I got a 2-minute and something long song all about the devil's advocates and the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. It's a rap type thing. It goes really fast. It's staccato. It's pretty fucking awesome. Having problems figuring out how to download it so I could potentially use it, but I want to air that. I'll try to get it to you before this show, and I couldn't pull that off. But anyways, we're trying to do that as well. All right. What else do we got in the questions, comments, or concerns? I have a question. Here we go. I'm going to read this live here because I didn't even read it through yet. I have a question I want an answer to. I think it needs to be explored. Phoenix brought up that on Getting Out, an app where you can message convicts in jail, the photo under BKs. And is there more to that question? Is there like a follow-on to that question? Let me see if this reads in its entirety. Here's more. I went on the app the day after, and it had been removed completely. The app itself is removed. I am not sure about this. Getting Out. Let's read this again. Phoenix brought up. So Phoenix is on Birdie Bombshell's show a lot. Phoenix Speaks, I think is what the name of her channel is, right? She's on Birdie's show a lot. So Phoenix brought up that on Getting Out, an app where you can message convicts in jail, the photo under BKs. Okay, so I'm not sure what that is. Somebody else is talking about they have that app. So this is kind of new to me. I will say this: every single Phoenix Talks. My apologies to Phoenix. I hate that I messed it up. Phoenix Talks, not Phoenix Speaks. So thank you so much. Maybe as a payback, Kimberly, you can find a link to her channel and put it up so that people can to go to Phoenix Talks, so that I can like make up for some of the bad thing. I did that. I had somebody one time call me Devil's something. It wasn't Devil's Advocates. It was like Devil's Attorney. I don't know fucking what it was, but it was a little bit of a mistake, and I was like, it's not my name of my show, but it is what it is. Now I just did it. Okay. What else do we got for comments and questions? What are your thoughts? We keep hearing about Trump getting ready to do GPS on people with crimes against humanity and opening up closed prisons. I have not heard of that. I have not heard of that. Why does it not surprise me though? Why does it not surprise me that we're moving in that direction? But let me say this about that. That's a common thing I say. Let me say this about that. I try to stay non-political. And by that, I mean, anytime we use the name Trump or any other politician, I get the heebie-jeebies, not because I don't feel like it's relevant to talk about, but it becomes too quickly an issue of liberals versus conservatives, Trump versus whoever, because we don't even have anybody other than Trump right now. The point being is that I get a little sketchy. It doesn't mean that I'll avoid politics altogether. I just tend to, when the first word out of a sentence is something related to Trump, I'm like, oh, I don't want to become political. Although, again, sometimes it's unavoidable. But I didn't hear about that. Certainly that issue about whether or not we're going to use different tools to track criminals, or if we're going to privatize and make courts less transparent, anything like that would be 100% open. And if a president, regardless of his political affiliation, is pushing for anything like that, that abridges our fundamental freedoms or violates our constitutional rights or changes things fundamentally, I'll be all over that like white on rice and a paper plate and a cold cup of milk in a snowstorm. Getting closer. I feel like I'm still missing it, but that's like the fucking fourth time I've done that. Do you know what I'm talking about on Major Payne? What I'm talking about when he does that huge riff about white on rice? Anyways. All right. What else do we got? There's the link, by the way, for Phoenix Talks YouTube channel. Phoenix and Birdie, again, they have different styles than I haven't talked much with Phoenix one-on-one. Phoenix and I have been on Birdie's show together once or twice, but we don't spend a lot of time personally, so I don't know a whole lot about her. But I know that Birdie's show and Phoenix show is a little different than my show. It's a different style, which is why it's so cool, I think, when we meet up. When we meet up, it's a blend, right? It's like what do they call that? A fusion. It's like fusion food. It's like, ooh, let's take Mexican and Chinese and blend it together, and we'll have fusion stuff. That's what we do when we get together with these other channels. So it seems odd that a firing squad was being built while a trial and needing a firing facility at the same time. Look over there, not here. Yes. In Howard Bloom's book, When the Night Comes Falling, they did talk a lot about how the state wanted to make sure they could execute Bryan Kohberger as quickly as possible. They had recently in the state of Idaho botched an execution. I think they tried to execute somebody by lethal injection 8 times and failed and had to give up on that execution. Sometimes the state runs out of the chemicals to kill somebody. And so according to Howard Bloom, the prosecution was putting pressure on the state of Idaho to make sure that they have ordered all the chemicals they need to execute Bryan Kohberger quickly, to put in a backup option. I forgot what they called it, deep vein something, but basically it's a different delivery method of lethal injection. It's not just the way that they were doing lethal injection as a backup option. And then implementing the firing squad as another option to kill people in Idaho. And they were trying to push that through quickly so that they could kill Bryan Kohberger as quickly as possible. The problem with that is it makes zero sense. It sounded great. It sounded sensational in the book, but every murder conviction has appeals processes. Those appeals processes take years, usually decades. You're not going to go execute Bryan Kohberger tomorrow, even if you did get the death penalty conviction. So it seems a little ridiculous. It seems sensational. It seemed like it was just something to make everybody, as you kind of said, look over here. It's a distraction. All right. What else? Yeah, the firing squad is supposed to be a backup method. Yeah, I thought the firing squad was supposed to be a backup method only. I thought in the beginning. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of states, if they have multiple ways of executing, they even allow the prisoner to choose which one of the ways that they want, or it could be a backup option in case one fails. It is for certain going to be a backup option if one fails. So let's say a prisoner gets the choice. I get to choose between lethal injection or firing squad. If they choose one and it fails, they're not just automatically let go. They may get the other option as the backup option and try again. At some point, like in the case of the recent individual in Idaho where they failed 8 times to execute him, they're like, enough. You can't keep trying to kill my guy over and over again. You get 2 shots at it, no pun intended, because we didn't have a firing squad then, but then you're done. DA, what is your Twitter handle? I don't have one yet. So that's what I was asking earlier. Should I create X slash, do they even call it Twitter anymore? I think they changed it to X, right? But should I create an account, or is it just, what I'm trying to do is not create a whole bunch of work for myself where I have to update 12 different places at once. So that's what I'm trying to do. I want to be out on the forefront and communicating with all of you guys in a very quick way. And I've got a Discord channel. And so I was kind of live tweeting from Discord, but a lot of you don't use Discord. And a lot of you use Twitter, but you don't use something else, or you don't use Facebook. I'll never use Facebook, some people say. And I can't be on every single social media platform, but I do want to be accessible to everyone. So how do I do that? I'm trying to work that out. How can I meet most of you where you're at without creating a ton of work for me, but being on 12 different social media platforms at the same time? It looks like my letter made it to Luigi. Are you talking to somebody else, or are you talking to me? It looks like your letter made it to Luigi. Is that about me, or is that somebody else you're talking about? If we've got a few minutes, I'll keep looking for comments from people. But the last thing I saw was 6-6. Let's take a look and see if Luigi's letter log has been updated since 6-6. Oh, yes, it has. 7-15. Huh. By the way, in case you want to know what we're talking about real quick, every single week on Sunday, I do a special for members only. This is part of that $2.99 benefit that I said that if you're a member, you get for $2.99. Every single week, I write letters to the inmates that are involved in the cases I follow. So I have a letter to Rex Heuermann every single Sunday, a letter to Brian Koberger every single Sunday, and a letter to Luigi Mangione every single Sunday. I don't expect return letters, but I do read my letters verbatim to you, my audience, on the member only section in case they ever write back and give me permission to share with my members only their response. I'm going to assume, and I give them the option, if you want to say something back to me private, just put private at the top of your page, or put private on a paragraph that you don't want read, and I won't share that with anybody. But I'm going to presume that whatever they send to me, they're willing to have answered. Oh, a question above, somebody said. Which one, Laura? Question above. Which question? This big one? They received $75K from legislative fees to build the firing squad facility in March 2023. The murder happened in November 2022. I would love to know where and if they're building others. That probably wasn't the question. Let's see, Crystal, above question. I'm trying to find the question. Oh, here we go. This must be the question. Do you think Idaho plea deal was done to spare Thompson's chance at his first loss? Ooh, Nancy. Well, I don't know if you saw my video, but I did do a video called my 5 top reasons why Bill Thompson gave the plea deal offer. I did kind of hint that one of those, I didn't put it as one of the numbered things, but it was mentioned in there that Bill Thompson's never lost a case, never. And he's retiring. This is his last case. So what I hinted at was the offer of the plea deal on behalf of the prosecution never would have been made if they truly thought it was a slam dunk case. And yes, I did hint, Bill Thompson doesn't want to go out his retirement having lost his first case. And so a plea deal allows him to go out winning, right? There's other things that I didn't mention in there, like Bill Thompson may not actually have been a proponent of the death penalty and doesn't believe in it, and so therefore bluffs the death penalty in the first place, but is always willing to go plea deal on it because he really doesn't believe in killing people regardless. That may be part of the thing, but I did hint that Bill Thompson, yes, may have been influenced in part to offer the plea deal because there was a possibility. For sure, one of my reasons was there was obviously the possibility that the prosecution was going to lose that case. They would have never offered, and again, semantics for those who say that, well, it's not, Bill Thompson didn't offer the plea deal. If they let Brian Koberger take a plea deal, then it was offered to him. It's just a matter of semantics. If Brian Koberger was allowed to accept the plea deal, it was offered to him by the prosecution. We will allow you to make a plea, and here's the conditions. Believe me, Bill Thompson would lay out the conditions. If you're going to plead guilty, here's what you must say as part of that plea. So they won't let him do a pussyfoot thing and say, well, I'm just going to go ahead and say that I'm guilty because I have no chance. You're not allowed to say that shit. The plea deal has very, very specific reasoning and wording, and that would have been written by Bill Thompson as the offer. I will offer you a plea under these conditions. Has Brian wrote me? No, Brian Koberger has not wrote me, and I don't think, for the record, I don't think Rex Heuermann or Brian Koberger will write me. Mostly because if everything that we're being told about Brian Koberger is correct, he's a bit of a loner and doesn't like talking to people. He's not a social kind of guy. So I doubt he's in the need for friends and making friends. So while I'm trying to appeal to his whatever it is, to open up a dialogue with me. He doesn't strike me as the kind of person who has any desire to win friends and influence people. So chances are he won't write back. And in my latest letter to Brian Koberger, I said, look, there's going to come a point at which I'm going to stop writing if it really is true that, what they're saying about you, which is that you don't really have any interest to talk to people. It would be better, and I basically asked, it'd be better if you just sent me one letter with 2 words, not interested. If you say not interested, I'll go pack sand and I'll stop writing to you. In the meantime, I'm trying to decide on those things. Writing Rex sounds a bit scary. I mean, he's locked up, right? As long as there's not a prison break, and as long as I don't piss him off in a letter and he decides that the first thing he's going to do when he gets out of prison is go across the country, I mean clear across the country, and hunt down my ass to kill me, I'm probably okay. So I'm going to feel a little bit safe even writing to Rex Heuermann. And I do some pretty personal shit in those letters. If you're curious to know what would you write to a killer, Devil's Advocates? These people are killers. What would you write to them? Well, if you're curious what I would write, $2.99 as a shameless plug for myself. You can check out what I write to these prisoners and what I say to them and how I try to connect with them. All right. So someone said that I'm on the latest letter log. I guess I probably can't do that live. It's very hard. And we've got, how many more minutes do I have left? 2 more minutes, basically. But someone says that they think I made the letter log. Some people know my first and my last initial. A lot of you know my first name, which is Lee. I tell you that all the time. It wouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out my last name, since my wife keeps going on YouTube with her last name all the time, which is my last name. So there you go. Finding out who I am, not real difficult. So anyway, some people know who I am, and they say that I made the letter log. However, someone said, I thought it said that the log had been updated till July something, and I don't see anything past 620. Although 620 is newer stuff, so maybe I'm on the log. I'll check that out when I get off here to see if Luigi Mangione has received one of my letters. If he received one of my letters, that's half the battle. Then the other part of the battle is, will he write back to me? He does write to people, so let's see if Luigi Mangione writes back. Any last-minute questions from the people out there? I wrote Brian, and my husband said I was crazy. Yeah, a lot of people don't understand why we would write to inmates, even if they are convicted criminals. I would say for myself, I've been a lifelong student of human behavior. I'm a huge student of human behavior. I want to know what makes people tick. You can almost have done anything in the world, and I will be able to relate to you in somehow if you can have a human conversation with me and explain how you did it. It doesn't mean I agree with your choices. It doesn't mean that I would ever consider doing the things that you did. But at some point in the level, if you can articulate yourself as a human being, I can understand why you did what you did. And I find that fascinating, being able to understand human beings. Because I'm not even going to the philosophical things, but understanding human beings and then being able to relate. That's the other thing I love to do. I love to communicate with other people and share with people and be able to explain things to you in ways that you didn't understand or didn't think about before. Where am I going with that? If I can make a human connection with somebody that did a killing, a brutal killing, and even if they really did it, I might be able to read between the lines and go, oh, I get why they did this. This is what they were thinking. And I might be able to put it in words that a killer couldn't put it into. And you might go, oh, that's totally it. I get it. So one of the things I'm good at, I feel like, is I'm good at disseminating information and putting it to you in layman's terms so you can understand what was really being said. So that's what I like to do. All right. Do all these facilities still use paper mail? I'm sending paper letters. I'm not sending emails. There are systems like TrueLinks, which is a prison system that allows an email to have basically email type correspondence. Luigi Mangione, for example, is using TrueLinks. But you first kind of have to make a connection with Luigi Mangione through written letters, and then he has to like you enough to give you his TrueLinks access, because he only gets to have access to so many people on his TrueLinks account. So if you're one of the real fortunate ones, and by fortunate I mean if you want to write to Luigi Mangione and you want him to write you back because you figure that as a good thing, if you're one of those people, you must first probably write to him in writing on a letter, plain old paper and a stamp and an envelope, and get him to like what you said so much that he's like, hey, by the way, here's my TrueLinks account number. You can email me at TrueLinks on the prison system. All right. Anything else on the way out? What's the address? Somebody's asking for. I haven't wrote Brian, but I definitely will. Lee, what's the address? Great education moment on the way out. for those of you who might be interested, and I get it if you think it's sick and why you would want to do this, I'm not going to defend why. I'm just going to say if you want to do this, let me explain something to you. This is going to be an educational moment. Ada County, where Bryan Kohberger is being held. Now, let me give you, I'm going to give you the last bits of information about writing to Bryan Kohberger specifically. Ada County, where he is at right now, he is in the Ada County Jail. That address, for educational purposes, is Bryan C. Kohberger, care of Ada County Jail, P.O. Box 247, Phoenix, Maryland, 21131. But why, devil's advocates, if he's in Ada County and Boise, Idaho, do I need to send a letter to Phoenix, Maryland? Well, that's what I made the mistake in the early stages. I had an address for Ada County Jail. I wrote to it. I got all my letters returned because that address is only for sending inmates books or periodicals. The local address of Ada County at Boise, Idaho, which you can look up on the internet, and you can get that address, that's what I started with, is just for books and periodicals. If you want to write to an inmate housed at Ada County Jail, you actually have to write to Phoenix, Maryland, and have that sorting facility reroute it back to Boise, Idaho for you. So the address, one more time, if you will, is Bryan C. Kohberger. His inmate number is not available online. So usually you want to have the inmate's number when you write. However, if a prison system doesn't have more than one Bryan C. Kohberger in the prison system, they know who you're writing to and it'll get to him. That's what I've been told. So usually you need to have their inmate number, especially if you're writing to Bill Smith. There might be a million Bill Smiths in the jail system. They don't know which Bill Smith you're writing to. But you know what? There's probably only one Bryan, or if you want to make it Christopher, Bryan Christopher Kohberger, you're probably going to get it to him because there's probably only one Bryan Christopher Kohberger. There's probably only one Bryan C. Kohberger. Hell, there's probably only one Bryan Kohberger. Fuck, there might only be one Kohberger. Anyways, the point being is that's how you write to him. All right. And different states have different rules. So that's it for today. I've run over. I've worn out my welcome. Thank you, everyone, for coming today and checking out my live. My next live will be tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday evening. That is my next scheduled live. And then I'm doing another one on Thursday at this time, which is going to be probably right after the non-dissemination order in Bryan Kohberger's case. So we'll talk about that. Thursday night, live with Pete Alturi, Murder Metal Mayhem. Holy shit, I said it right this time. Murder Metal Mayhem. We do a special mashup together. We're going to talk about Gilgo Beach, the LISK, Long Island serial killer Rex Heuermann in particular on that show. And then Friday, the 6 p.m. closing show for the week, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, followed by the After Dark party. Last week's After Dark party, Birdie Bombshells came in and we got lit. It was a little irreverent. It was a little rude. It was a little sexual. It was a little unchained. So that's not going to happen every single week. Birdie's not going to be there probably this week. But if you want to check that out, it does have some special moments if you can handle F-bombs and really, really, really frank adult conversations. It's for adults only. Thank you for coming. Again, I'm out. I've talked too long. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, notifications all, and I'll see you guys later. Be watching, by the way, for long-form content coming out all week. Take it easy.